everyone. Hope you're having an awesome day. Wanted to go through something that comes up an awful lot in conversations. So this isn't exactly like a coaching conversation, but it does come up, I would say, in more than half of conversations. Doesn't matter what we're talking about, if it's lead generation, if it's financials, everything goes back to culture. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes and just kind of talk through what is culture. Go through culture versus the process, or culture versus strategy. And I don't know if you kind of heard the phrase, but culture eats strategy for breakfast, or culture trumps the process. But it's a real thing, and I'm not sure where you're at in your business, if this is something you've been doing for 1 month or 30 years. But I interact with agency owners of all shapes and sizes in between those two date ranges, and even myself, really just kind of almost having 2 full decades at being an agency owner and a consultant. It's really something that took me a while to really even understand what this meant. Where until I experienced a few situations, it was just something you read in a textbook or something you read in a book that maybe someone recommended to you. So what is culture? Okay, so culture is the ability to, number one, state the vision of what you're doing, and then to share your why you're doing it, and then to get buy-in from the team. And I'm not talking about like buy-in where you have to convince someone, or you have to kind of be sneaky about it. I'm talking about true buy-in. Really, this doesn't work if someone's belief system is not aligned with your belief system. So whatever your belief system is, and we're going to assume that it's trustworthy, that it's to honor your word and those type things, you need to make sure that that belief system is emulated in your team, because if not, it will be oil and water and you will never be able to get culture. Now, depending on where you're at right now, if you have no team, if you have a tenured team, you may have some of this that you're dealing with already. There are often times where I have a team that there's always one or two people in the team that seem to just nod their head, but when it comes to walking it out or doing the work or coming in early if that's what needs to happen, or stay later to get a deal done if that's what needs to happen, or you're 2, 3, 4 days towards the end of the month, and to dig in and grind it out and say, honey, I'm going to be a little late tonight, but I need to make sure that we hit this goal. Then obviously, their spouse understands that, and they should respect that, because obviously that means more income to them and their family. But the ones that just kind of like wait for the whistle to blow at 5 o'clock and they leave with 2, 3, 4 days left in the month with still, a gap in the goal, they may not match the culture. So it's just something that I want to talk through real quick, because if they don't, you need to address it. You really need to deal with this. And that's what this conversation that I had this morning was about. Is I could tell you all the processes. I could tell you all the lead generation. I could literally give you the perfect roadmap to building your agency and hitting numbers. But if you don't have culture, it is not sustainable. Yeah, you'll have a good quarter. You'll show up on some reports. You'll have some good checks. But I can tell you that it will not last. It's not a sustainable model. Now, culture versus process. So think of it this way. Processes run businesses, not people, okay? So you need to have a foundation of core processes in your business. So from coming in the morning to how you turn the alarm off, to how you check voicemails, to how you turn the coffee pot on. I mean, I know that sounds very, kind of maybe over the top or maybe even simple, but if it's the core fundamentals of how you run the business. You don't ever want to be dependent on a person. You want to be dependent on a process, okay? The other part of that is people run the processes. Obviously, processes don't run themselves. The phone doesn't pick itself up and call people. You have to have people doing the work. So that is important. And as a business owner, you want to invest in those people. But you want to make sure that those people have the culture that you have and that you want. And depending on where you're at right now, you may check that box and say, Jimmy, I've got this, no problem. Yeah, I've been through that, I've experienced it, and that's awesome. So you have self-awareness of it, and you'll continue to do great. The ones that haven't really encountered maybe what would happen if you had one or two people that can undermine your culture where you have three, four, five that are adhering to it and they have the buy-in. I would get out in front of that before something happens, because there will be a point in time where it will either bottleneck your growth or there will be breakdown within the team. And that takes a lot longer to rebuild. There are some things that I can kind of help you walk it out in our consulting if that's something that kind of resounds in your mind you'd like to do. But really just have self-awareness. There's a lot of good videos out there. There's some great books. You can go, some other YouTube channels. We have some stuff, obviously, in our consulting. That's what I do when I work with clients. But you can kind of filter those out. And what my recommendation is always give the team member the benefit of the doubt. I would say 7 to 8 times out of 10, the culture issue isn't really their issue. It's because you've allowed it to happen. And my recommendation always first is to kind of restate the mission. Don't ever let someone be above the mission. Restate it, ask if they understand it, and then almost kind of self-admit, say, look, I know I've let some things slide. I know I've let some things go on, but moving forward, we're going to dig in. And if we have a few days left in the month and we're short on the goal, we're all going to dig in and I'm going to be here together. So you're restating it, and then really give them the benefit of the doubt. But beyond that, don't give them any slack, because obviously next month, if you're a little bit short and that person's leaving, well, then you've done all that you can do. And the best way to change people is to change people. I know you've heard that too. But what will happen is you'll see that one person or the 1-2 people that you think that your business cannot operate without. Yes, it can. And if they don't match your culture, your processes will never work. They'll never be sustainable. I promise. I've been there myself, and I've seen a lot of business owners and especially agency owners where the culture always trumps the process. And what will happen is, just like kind of, the stars will align. If these people leave your business, I can guarantee you, number one, either you'll just realize that the rest of the team will pick up the slack and get it done, and maybe you didn't even need that position or that extra person. You can kind of redistribute out to the rest of the team, cut down on some expenses, cut down on some headaches, give the other team members the upside of the revenue. Or if you do need that person, within 30, 60 days, I'm telling you, that person will come into your life. It's almost kind of just the law of attraction a little bit. But until that person is not out of the picture, if indeed you've given them the benefit and they don't adhere or change or buy into the mission, then you'll never see that other person, because you're too focused on the problem and not the solution. Anyways, I hope that spoke to you. I hope it helps someone just going through culture versus strategy, or culture versus the process. That culture, always culture first. And then process will rise to the level of the culture. And that's something we'll talk about later, and I do in some of our consulting. You talk about the lid on the business. So the lid will always be set at the level of the leader's leadership level, basically, is the way to explain that. And what happens is that when you ingrain and dig in on the culture, man, that lid just gets put on like an express elevator, and the lid will just keep rising, because the team will start growing as one, and you won't have that anchor anymore. So hope everything's doing well. Hope you have a great day and a great rest of your week, and I hope this helped on culture versus the process.